Hello and welcome to another episode of the Geotechnical Engineering Podcast. Today's guest is Matt Niermann of Schnabel. He's a vice president there. He's going to be presenting a very interesting topic called cognitive diversity. We're going to be talking about how cognitive diversity has a positive impact on our teams and especially teams for engineering companies. So buckle your seatbelt. It's going to be very interesting and hopefully you're able to take some notes because this is stuff you can apply right now in your team. Take some time, but these are things that you can implement very soon. I'm your host, Jared Green, and I'm excited to be bringing you another episode of the Geotechnical Engineering Podcast. But before we get started, we're going to have a word from our sponsor for today's episode, that being Simpson Strong Tie.
I think my biggest struggle was I knew I was gifted, but didn't know how to use my gift. My boss at the time encouraged me to go back to school through Simpson's education reimbursement program. Simpson said, hey, we see where you are, we see where you want to go, we'll put you on the path to get there. Actually just recently finished my MBA degree. I like that Simpson cared about my personal goals as well as my professional goals. They gave me the space to develop who I was becoming.
Matt, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Jared. How are you?
I'm great. Super glad to have you here. To set the stage, it would be helpful if you could start out by just telling us a little bit more about yourself, talk a little about your background and how that ties into the field of civil engineering. Like, how did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah, sure. Okay, sure. So I grew up outside Chicago suburbs. I was one of 7 kids. I was actually the middle child. So I had a 4-year gap on either side of me between my siblings and I. So I had a lot of time on my own to do things. I like to make things and build things. When I was about 8 years old, my dad built me a sandbox. And this was a big sandbox. He probably put about 10 cubic yards of sand in this thing. So I would go out there all day long, dig big holes, make earth dams, flood it, watch piping develop, I guess. I didn't know what it was, but it was piping. I also like to dig holes. I had 3 little brothers, I was trying to capture. So I dig holes, put sticks and branches over the hole, try and catch them. So had a lot of fun doing that. I was very fortunate, to grow up in Illinois. So I was able to attend University of Illinois and get a degree in civil engineering. And then I stuck around for another year and got a master's in geotech. And then from there, I was very fortunate to come on board at Schnabel. And I've been doing design, build, geostructural construction work ever since and having a great time doing it. And I'm currently the vice president of research and development. And then I also manage our equipment function.
Great. So you got your hands full. So you went from the sandbox to still in the sandbox.
To big sandboxes. Yeah, it's pretty much a dream job for me. So.
That is wonderful. You literally were made for this. You were made for this, Matt.
Yeah.
So let's get into our conversation for today. We're going to talk about cognitive diversity. Mm-hmm. So first, explain to us what is cognitive diversity and how does that tie to team dynamics? Like, what is the relevance there?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the word cognitive refers to thinking. So if I say cognitive diversity, I'm really referring to thinking diversity or differences in the way that people think. So like, let's take you and I. We know different things. We think different ways. And we have different attitudes and values towards life. So the two of us, when we're together, we represent cognitive diversity. The two of us together also represent a team. So when we're together, like we are this morning, we're the Jared and Matt team. And the success of our team is going to depend on our ability to manage our cognitive diversity. If we can do it really well, then our team is going to be successful. If we can't do it well, then we're liable to sort of have big disagreements and sort of fracture and falter, along the way as we go here.
Got it. Now that's a term that I haven't really heard of much. So I'd be curious to hear, what sparked your interest in cognitive diversity
Hmm.
and the impact on team performance. Were there some
Yeah,
experiences or insights that led you to explore this? Did somebody put this in your lap and say, "Hey, Matt, figure this out"? Like, how did you get there?
yeah, definitely. Okay, so about 5 years ago, our company reorganized in a way that really emphasizes and relies on teamwork to be successful. And so, one of the things we realized pretty early on in this reorganization is that we really needed to dig into the fundamentals of teamwork, um, and build that as a strength of our company if we were going to make this reorganization successful. So that was my motivation to really start looking into the subject of teamwork. Um, I was very fortunate early on around that time. I attended a class at Virginia Tech, and this class at Virginia Tech was for problem solving, managing teams, and it introduced me to some of the teachings of Dr. Michael Curtin, who's a British psychologist, and he is most well known for developing adaptation innovation theory. Um, I'm going to read his description of what adaptation innovation theory is. Dr. Curtin refers to it as, quote, a model of problem solving and creativity which aims to increase collaboration and reduce conflict within groups. So, end quote. So, in other words, perfect. This is right up our alley. This is
Mhm.
all about teamwork. Um, I'm very fortunate at Schnabel to have a lot of leeway in my position to go a lot of different directions. And I think this is true really company wide. We're a company that gives our people a lot of flexibility to go after different things. And so I'm very fortunate to have a boss who does give me that leeway, which is why, you have a VP of R&D with a master's in geotech sitting here talking to you about cognitive diversity.
Oh, that's great. Now is that something like, let's say, break it down a little bit. So like the Virginia Tech class, was that something that you sought out for and then you found it, you asked for approval, you went and took it? Or is this something that somebody said, well, he's already looking at cognitive diversity, maybe take a look at this? Like, is that something you had to look for?
I stumbled across it. My
Okay.
my boss, every year, of course, we're always sort of trying to schedule out, hey, what's our continuing education going to look like? What classes are we taking? What outside classes are we taking? That kind of thing. And yeah, I really stumbled across the class. It was an email that I get thousands of emails,
Yeah.
and this was an email that I glanced at, deleted, and then about 3 seconds later, I thought, "You know what? That sorta looked interesting."
Yeah.
So, I dragged it out of my, deleted items folder and gave it another read or gave it another read through and, decided to attend it. So, yeah,
Ah,
it was that's sorta, chance, that's
that's
life,
awesome.
right?
That's awesome. But it's great your organization encourages that type of exploration and you're allowed to, invest in resources, right? Your
Right.
time away and then
Oh,
cost
yeah.
for the class. And
Oh, yeah.
then we'll see what happens, right? And so
Right.
far, so good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Ah, that's great. Now, when it comes to cognitive diversity within a team, is there a way to measure it or describe it? Like if somebody, it feels like it's kind of out there, right? But how do you, is it engineering you? How are you measuring whether or not you have it or there's been an improvement or
Yeah.
how you quantify this?
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, of course, if you're going to try to evaluate or measure diversity of a team, you really have to start with the individual. So, what I want to present to you now is really a template or a structure for understanding the way people think, the way I think, the way you think, the way everybody thinks. This is called a cognitive schema. It's an organization chart for your brain. It divides your brain into a couple different areas, three different areas. So the first area of cognitive function is called your cognitive resources. So this is going to be your storehouse of all of the knowledge and experiences, the know-how that you've accumulated over your life. and you've learned things and you've remembered things. And when you commit them to memory, they become part of your cognitive resource. So that's the first area. The second area is called your cognitive affect. And cognitive affect is where all of your needs, values, attitudes, and beliefs about the world, about life in general, that's where they reside. And this part of your thought process is very important because this is going to be an individual source of motivation. This is where they decide what's important to them and what problems they're going to solve. So that's cognitive affect. The other third part of your brain that we're going to look at is called cognitive effect, and this is where you get your intellectual level and then your style. Intellectual level is really that's how smart a person is. It's their IQ. Um, Cognitive style is the way in which a person goes about solving a problem. Another way of describing cognitive style is it is an individual's preferred method for using structure in their life. Um, so these are the three areas of an individual's brain. This is the cognitive resource, cognitive affect, and cognitive effect. Um, we can categorize that or describe that for an individual. And since we can do that for an individual, when we have a group of people together, we can get an idea of the range of diversity that we have and manage it accordingly.
Got it. And is that something that changes over time? Like somebody's each of those thirds, the
Yeah,
way I am today, am I going to be this way for the next 20 years, or is this something that can
yeah,
change over time?
yeah. Great question. So, of course, if you look at cognitive resource, we're
Mhm.
constantly learning new things, technical things, but also people related things, experiences. These are experiences at work, home, hobbies you have. It's everything.
Mhm.
So, you know, that changes with time.
Mhm.
Certainly, cognitive resource changes with time. As far as cognitive affect goes, your needs and values, those are somewhat fixed, but they change over time. I think the things that I value now are have a lot of similarities to what I valued when I was 16 years old, but they're also all very different now.
Yeah.
I have 6 kids now. I
There you
did not
go.
have for example, my values and my attitudes have changed, as a parent. So
Got it.
definitely your cognitive affect will change over time, but a lot of that is it's pretty steady for people. These are the
Yeah.
things, your parents taught you when you were young. These are things that, are really deeply held beliefs towards life. So they do change, but there's also a portion that doesn't. And then the last area, the cognitive effect, where you talk about someone's intellectual level and their style, those things don't really change. You have a certain intelligence level, and you also have a style, and those two do not change with time. They're constant.
Got it. Got it. I really like this because, as a leader, it just shows folks that are listening in and watching, it shows that the real work that goes into understanding who's on your team.
Hmm.
Because once you understand who's on your team, you're going to understand who's going to work well with who. And if
Yes.
there's conflict, you
Yep.
understand, oh, well, this person's affect's different from this person's affect. Are there
Yep.
opportunities to work together, or do we need to put somebody between them? So
Yeah.
this is cool. This is
Yeah.
cool.
It is neat stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does cognitive diversity, how does it play a role in fostering effective teamwork within engineering and construction projects? So that's what, a lot of folks are listening in,
Exactly.
they're on projects like that.
Yep.
How does this all work together?
Yep. Yep. Sure. So, okay. So I guess the first thing you want to do is let's talk about what we mean by effective teamwork. So teams are formed to solve problems that are too big or complicated for one person to solve. That's why you form a team. If you have effective teamwork, then effective teamwork means that that group of people, that team, has been able to produce a better outcome than a single person might have been able to produce on their own. That's what we're going to define as effective teamwork, a better outcome or maybe the optimal outcome for a problem. So engineering and construction, lots of big and complicated problems to solve. A lot of great challenges out there. No shortage of that. That's what makes our job fun. When we look at those big and complicated problems, there's a rule of problem solving that applies. And that rule says that diverse and complicated problems require diverse teams to solve them. The diverse team is going to be a well-rounded team. The individuals on that team are going to have different thinking styles. They're going to come at the problem from different angles. They're going to utilize varying amounts of structure to solve the problem. This is where the people have all heard the terms in the box thinking or out of the box thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That has to do with how much structure you prefer to use in life to solve a problem. So the different team members, you have a diverse team, you're going to have people with those different thinking styles. And then, of course, that diverse team is going to have come into the problem pretty much armed with, different life experiences. They might have gone to the same school, got the same degree like you and I did, Jared, but we have very different life experiences, different hobbies. We've met different people along the way. We've learned different things. We've worked on different projects. So we're going to bring all that diversity together, and that's going to increase the likelihood that we come up with either the optimal solution for a problem or something close to optimal for the problem. When we do that, the great thing, when we do that, then the team is rewarded. The team members are rewarded for the success of the team. They've accomplished something that, as individuals, they never could have done. So cool stuff, really.
I love it. So when you look at cognitive diversity, it sounds like there are all these benefits, which is great, right? But are there any trade-offs or challenges that can arise if you're working with a cognitively diverse team? And if there are, how can these challenges be addressed to ensure smooth collaboration?
Yeah, certainly. So there's definitely going to be challenges when you bring together a diverse team. These challenges have to do with the fact that anytime you bring two or more people together to solve a problem, you're going to have some amount of conflict is going to arise because those team members think differently. So the same differences that I just talked about that are going to yield the optimal, or hopefully will yield the optimal solution for the team, those same differences of thought have the potential to fragment and divide the group. There's always going to be some amount of conflict that's healthy conflict, that's focused on solving the main problem that the team has ahead of itself. But when that conflict devolves into conflict that's not helpful to solving the problem, it's become too much. It drags down the team and it limits their effectiveness. There's more energy focused on those internal problems of getting along and who does what than there is with the main problem that you're trying to solve. So there's a few things, certainly there's a lot of things, but a few things I want to point out that teams can do to manage this sort of conflict that arises that's not helpful. First thing, of course, it's always helpful to have a good leadership for the team. The good leader is going to, first off, make sure that everybody is aligned on solving the main problem, making sure that people understand the main problem we're trying to solve, and pulling together those people on the team that everyone is going to have slightly or somewhat different motivations. We talked about that's part of diversity. Everyone has different motivations, but the good leader manages those motivations and helps bring people along to get them focused on solving the main problem that's ahead of the team. So that's first, the leadership component. Second, of course, it's very helpful for that leader and everyone if people on the team have a good understanding of cognitive diversity. They've been exposed to it, and it's been told, they've learned why it's valuable. So if people on the team have this understanding, um, they're going to be more likely to be respectful of differences rather than disparaging or criticizing teammates for thinking differently than them. So that's second. And then third, there's a concept, sort of an advanced concept, and the concept is that of withholding diversity. So you've heard me talk about how diversity is great and it's really helpful. There are times in life when it's better for us, it's better for the team to withhold some of our diversity. So when I say withholding diversity, I mean having the judgment as a team member to refrain from contributing ideas, suggestions, opinions, etc., that are not useful at that time to solve the main problem facing the team. So this also might mean setting aside motivations that are not helpful to the team. So in other words, perhaps setting aside an individual goals or individual motivations that don't align or mesh with the team's goal. And remember, the reward for the team member, if they can set aside their personal goals, they're rewarded with the success of the team.
Yeah.
The reward will come, but they need to have that judgment and that emotional intelligence, if you will, to be able to set that aside for the greater good of the team.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of maturity. That takes a lot
Yeah.
of maturity. Because you're just thinking it's all about me. It's like, but wait, I'm on a team, right? Like, what does the team need right now? So
Yeah.
that's really good the way you broke that down. So, in
Yeah.
your opinion, and you touched on some of this, but in your opinion, what are some of the practical solutions and practical strategies to optimize the benefits of cognitive diversity, while also mitigating potential conflicts or communication gaps within a team?
Yeah. That's a pretty complicated question. And, you know, what I'd really like to do is give the listener a really simple, something pretty simple to remember about that question. And what I want to share is really a really simple truth, sort of a universal truth about human nature. And this is a sort of a universal truth that'll help maximize teamwork and minimize conflict. So people on a team, they need to feel two things. They need to realize and know that they are part of the team. First and foremost, they're part of the team. And second, not only are they part of the team, but that each person needs to know that they have really a unique and important role for that team. Those two things are critical for the team members. And this is where good leadership is required, because a good leader will make sure he'll know, first of all, he or she will know their people. They'll know their people. They will know the profile of cognitive diversity that each individual has. And they will make sure that their people are, first off, on the right team. And once they're on the team, that those people know that they have a unique and important role on that team that they are responsible for, that they need to do. So when that happens, that team member, that's going to maximize their output. They're going to be happy, productive. They're going to like what they're doing, and they're going to know they're on the team, and they're going to feel valued for their special role. So that's going to maximize their output. The other thing that happens, I talked about minimizing conflict. The other thing that happens is it minimizes conflict, because that happy person, that person who's content with what they're doing, they are going to be more tolerant of their team members' perhaps annoying diversities, if you will. So
Yeah.
they're coming from a happy place. They're gonna be more tolerant of their team members. So they're gonna they're gonna be more accepting, more respectful, and as a result, that harmful conflict that detracts away from solving the big problem, that's minimized. So that's just a really basic truth about people on teams. They need to know they're part of the team, and they need to know that they have a unique and important role on the team.
Honestly, it sounds like if this is done right, we should be able to celebrate the diversities that are represented,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right. So, what are some of the specific techniques and practices that you've implemented within your organization to encourage cognitive diversity and also enhance teamwork?
Okay, great. So the first thing we've done, of course, is educate our people,
Mhm.
about what cognitive diversity is. Um, Diversity is sort of a hot topic word. Cognitive, people are scratching their heads. What do you mean by cognitive, Matt? So we've done a lot of, whether it be internal webinars or person-to-person meetings. So we've really made a push the last few years to increase our people's knowledge of cognitive diversity. And this is continuing education. It's never really done. There's always new people joining the team, um, and the people that have been on the team a long time, there's always more you can learn. It's a huge topic, and we're just scratching the surface of it.
Yeah.
So we've got an emphasis on education and training. Another thing we've done is we've implemented some risk reduction techniques that take advantage of cognitive diversity. So, for example, let's say we have a proposal going out for a very complicated project. We're going to make a conscious effort now to bring together a diverse team of individuals with different thinking styles, different experiences, and so forth. They're going to come together and review that proposal before it goes out, and make sure that we've come up with the optimal solution for the client. So that's the second thing, and then a third thing that we're putting in place is this technique of the devil's advocate. And I think most people have heard of what a devil's advocate exercise is, but basically, this is where you ask an individual to provide a critical review of your plan or solution that you've come up with, or that the team has come up with. The key word here is ask. So you're literally inviting someone to come in and pick apart your great solution,
Yeah.
your great plan, and you're asking that person to give you all the reasons why it's going to fail or it might not work. And this isn't always easy to do, but if you can pull it off, and if you can do it right, it's a really valuable exercise.
I like the key word there is ask, because
Yeah.
oftentimes you're not asking for feedback and you're getting it. And then you're automatically on the defensive because it's like, this solution's amazing. Like, how can you have a problem with it? Right.
Yes, exactly. But with an understanding of cognitive diversity, you can hopefully you don't you, that criticism is directed towards the plan,
Yes. And
and it's
not
not
towards you.
directed towards the person. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So the
Yes.
focus, and everyone should keep the focus on, hey, this is the plan, because remember,
Yeah.
we're all here to solve the same problem. We're all
Exactly.
here to, work together, come up with the optimal solution. We're not here to make personal attacks or advance one person above someone else.
I love it. That's such a
Um,
healthy way to think about a team. So before we take our break, any final thoughts or key takeaways you'd like to share with the listeners and viewers regarding the significance of cognitive diversity in driving innovation, problem solving, and overall team success?
Well, I make it sound easy, perhaps, but there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Okay.
So managing diversity takes effort, no doubt. It can be so much easier, at least we think, to just forge ahead and do things our way and not involve other people. Um, so bringing in a diverse team, it takes effort, but it's worth it. and it's going to help you generate the optimal solution to your problem.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. We're going to come back in just a minute and close this one out with Matt in our Career Factor of Safety In segment. Stick around.
Before we go on here, I'd like to recognize our sponsor for this episode, Tensar International.
Check out Tensar Plus, the award-winning design software for construction professionals to design with geosynthetics and calculate their value on projects. Tensar Plus is simple to use with a powerful engineering system at its core. Whether you're designing a crane pad or need to build a temporary road over muck, the cost, time, and carbon savings can be calculated, making comparison with alternatives simple.
All right, welcome back. It's time for our Career Factor Safety In segment. In geotechnical engineering, just like many disciplines of engineering, it's important to incorporate a factor of safety into your design. But what about incorporating a factor of safety into your actual career? Today, of course, we're speaking with Matt Niermann of Schnabel. Now, Matt, you've already had a very successful career. When you look back on your career, what's something that you've implemented in your career to give yourself, let's call it a factor of safety in your career?
Okay, so that's a pretty interesting question, interesting way to phrase it. When I think of factor of safety, I think of words like redundancy or resiliency, ductility, maybe. And I've been very fortunate. I've been with Schnabel for 25 years. They've always given me a lot of opportunities to grow and to learn new things. And I've met a lot of people along the way, heard insights from people a lot older and wiser than me. And one of the things that's really come through to me is if an individual has an attitude of, hey, I'm never going to stop learning. I am going to get out there. I'm going to try new things. I'm going to increase. I'm not going to get stuck in a rut. I'm going to open myself up to new challenges and really actively pursue learning new things. If you have that attitude, you're going to become a very valuable person to the team that you're on.
Yeah.
And companies need these types of people on their team because the world changes. Markets change, products change. There's new challenges come our way all the time. If you have that attitude towards learning and you're a proactive learner, you are going to have a career that is resilient. If you have setbacks or diversions, you never stop learning. You're going to be able to get back on your feet again and keep going. So that's my advice for those of you out there that are looking to implement a factor of safety in their career.
Amazing. Matt, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing all the great insights with us. You shared some great information and advice that I know is going to be helpful for our listeners and viewers. So if somebody's watching this and they say, wow, where can I reach out to Matt? Are you on social media? Do you have an email you can share with us?
Yep. You can find me on LinkedIn or that's probably the easiest way. Yep.
Okay. Got it. I was going to ask if you have a book that you're writing because there's a lot here to unpack. It should be written down somewhere.
No book. Remember, Jared, I have 6 kids. So
there you go.
No book.
No time for books. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is a lot of fun.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the episode today. We would love to hear your feedback, comments, and/or questions. Please feel free to go to geotechnicalengineeringpodcast.com where you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, that being episode 81, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the very best in all of your geotechnical engineering endeavors. Peace.